He asks, how do they get the money from public coffers to run these sort of projects? It's actually a very good example of it is one of our witnesses who worked for SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation, in La Jolla, California, is the headquarters. And this is one of the crown jewels of the contracting entities that deal with this issue. And SAIC deals with many issues, but they sort of have companies within companies within companies. That's the way it's structured. And this particular witness, who's one of the Disclosure Project witnesses, was a woman who had been recruited to work for the company. And she was in a program that basically was a room and a bunch of file cabinets. And what she did, they took in millions of dollars based on a grant and or a proposal for funding research. It went into their office, went out the back door of the funds to a black project. And what she and the other people in the office did was gin up reports that would go back to the government and to the auditors that were completely bogus. And when she asked, where is this, what's the real research going on with this money, she was shown a file just full of these empty reports. So obviously that's fraud, but that is how they work. So for example, the B-2 stealth bomber might cost a few $100 million actually to build. They tell the Congress they cost $2 billion apiece. Well, the other missing $1.3 billion goes into the EMGs, the electromagnetogravitics or other unacknowledged special access projects. So this is sort of just the way it is done. And because of the nature of top secret compartmented, top secret TSI, TSSCI, top secret special compartmented intelligence, when you get to the unacknowledged level, nobody unless you're in that compartment, you're not going to report anything out to any external person. I don't care who it is. Certainly not the Congressional Budget Office or the auditors at KPMG or whoever it is. They just don't report it out. It'll be reported out on these phony things. And this is why when Rumsfeld said there's $2.3 trillion unaccounted for, I mean, again, this was not a flaming liberal. It's not Abby Hoffman saying this. This is the Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush and Dick Cheney saying this. So if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe him, and that it's just unaccounted for. But that's how it's done. This one little example, so a lot of it is kind of overbilling and overcharging. You hear about these massive costs, 500% cost overruns, 1,000%. Well, it's not cost overruns per se. Part of it is that it's just going into a black project and being diverted, but not just Department of Defense and CIA. I have people who worked with the first Bush presidency, Bush Sr., who said that they were pulling money out of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and other agencies. That would be things that were inflated prices that would then be siphoned off into black projects. And that is done routinely. And so, now, there's another way of doing it. I don't know if I should go into this or not. This is this is the dark end of it. Okay, so one of the meetings I had was right after we did the meetings in 1997 for members of Congress and for Admiral Wilson at the Pentagon, the J2, head of intelligence joint staff. I had a meeting with a former member of Congress and a senior executive with SAIC at Crystal City here near National Airport at this former congressman's condo. And this congressman had been for many years sort of a consigliere to George Bush Sr. And he said, do you understand how dangerous this group is? I said, yes. He says, but do you understand where a lot of their funding comes from? I said, I have a very good idea. Where are you going with this? And the SAIC executive had recently retired and moved out of the country to France. And both these people asked me not to disclose their names, but this has put me under sodium pentothal. I'm telling you the truth here. They said, well, we use these anti-grav devices, and they launch wee hours of the night from various places, and they move billions, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of clandestine drugs and armaments around the world. And he said there is one group that is involved, it's like a small army, he said, of people of 8,000 men that have been involved in just moving contraband around the world because it's all cash and it's untraceable. And we have killed 2,000 of these men for minor infractions of security. Okay, this is not a conspiracy theory. These were two principals with firsthand knowledge of it, warning me of what this group is really into. So one of the reasons, therefore, fast forward to another problem. If the drug war has been created so that by making it illegal, it not only keeps it criminalized, but it creates a domain where so these super black illegal operations can kind of pluck the low-hanging fruit and have a very large, I'm talking hundreds of billions of dollars of funding by being kind of integrated with these criminal enterprises. You know, now I'm not in favor of drug use, but I think it should be completely legalized for that reason. And that would just suck all, it won't be. Now, they'll wrap themselves in morality and public health and all this other stuff. They could care less. I mean, you know, any kid, any middle school kid can go to anywhere and get any drug they want in the DC area or even out in Virginia in the rural area I live in. It's so that it creates their own little monopoly, and it does. And this is not a conspiracy theory, because I have met with the principals who were involved in those operations. So that's another source of funding. Now, there's another source of funding. So we have the black budget of the United States government, 100, 200 billion a year. You have this clandestine and very dark criminal enterprise running drugs and armaments. And then you have another source, and that is, I call them the corporate spin-offs. Pieces of junk like this. The technologies at Murray Hill facility, AT&T in the early days, Bell Labs, Lockheed. There's a lot of technologies that have been spun out of, as Colonel Corso said in The Day After Roswell, that were studied that have made their way into the public by studying extraterrestrial materiel that have come from our downing of these aircraft, spacecraft. Those end up going first into these unacknowledged projects, but then they get moved into their corporate partners and then get monetized as a product. Fiber optic, integrated circuits, computerization, miniaturization, special material sciences, night vision technology. A lot of these things came out of those classified projects that were studying ET technologies. Now, what they've held back are the energy generation and propulsion systems. But they have monetized and become enormously wealthy through these others that have been monetized. Now, we the taxpayers have paid for that research, but it ends up getting a patent and gets spun out as, look what we invented. Now, most people, you know, and it's interesting that this guy named Thiel, who was one of the co-founders of PayPal, I believe, recently said in an interview with Fareed Zakaria on CNN that there has been no real discoveries and progress technologically in 50 or 60 years. And this was on CNN. It still takes you the same amount of time to go from JFK to Paris now as it did in 1964, 50 years ago. And that basically what we've done is sort of tinker around the edges. Now, I know people, when they hear me say this, the people in Silicon Valley and who think they're high tech with this, I mean, we had telephones 100 and some years ago, so, are just like appalled. I said, yeah, but the internet was developed by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration. The technologies that are in here were spun out of these covert programs, and then people innovated them. They did innovation and applications, not discovery. So, and if you come up with a fundamental new discovery in science and technology that is really disruptive, i.e. free energy or something like that, it will be confiscated, either under a national security order, or if it goes through the patent process, through the patent law provisions for seizure. And if not that, they'll just flat out take it and tell you to be quiet or else. And that's true of people at universities, industry, private inventors, et cetera. I know many, many, many people who've had that happen. Here in Washington, the Federation of American Sciences said, well, look, there have been 5,135 patents that have been seized. Well, the reason for that is that the things they don't want out are things that are true breakthroughs. So if you look at our society, yes, we have an internet and you have an app so you can go find your restaurant you want to find instead of looking through the yellow pages. But it's just the yellow pages is digitized. It's no big deal. We're still running this thing and all the lights in this building off a coal-fired power plant from the 1800s. Your car is the same engine Mercedes had in the 1800s, internal combustion. The jet engines were developed in the 30s, invented. Rockets, 40s. Atomic power, 1945. No real fundamental breakthroughs in science and technology since then. And that's what Thiel was saying. Thiel, the multi-billionaire. And I think it was sort of an astonishing statement for a lot of people, but he was being honest about it. So, but there has been monetization that way, which has created enormous revenue for a lot of these corporations.